Hi, third grade. Today's math instructional video is going to be pretty quick, and you're probably going to be looking at this worksheet and you're going to say, this is not new content. I know how to do this, because we have been doing today's lesson in math power-ups since January. So our lesson 107 is on adding and subtracting fractions with common denominators. Shouldn't have had to rewrite that because our objective is add and subtract fractions with common denominators. And if you look at the worksheet, it's hopefully going to look a lot like some of the power-ups that we've done. The reason that we do math power-ups is because right now it's the middle of April. We're actually ahead of schedule because we haven't done any tests. We're actually a couple lessons ahead of when we normally would have taught this lesson. Normally, I wouldn't be teaching this lesson until the end of April or the beginning of May. And by then, we would be completely done with state testing. State testing is at the end of March and the beginning of April. You need to know how to add and subtract fractions for the state test, which we didn't take this year, but we didn't know that. So we looked ahead when we were planning out for the year, and we said, what are things that we know will be on the test, but the math book doesn't get to it until after the test? Those things we need to start teaching in power-ups so that our kids are ready for that test, because the book doesn't teach it till later in the year. Now we've been doing this in power-ups. It's later in the year. You didn't have to take the state test, but now we're going to be seeing that content that we would normally not be learning until after state testing was over, which is why we do those power-ups. So today it's hopefully going to be a very quick review for you. So the worksheet that goes along with this lesson is reteaching 107. When adding fractions with common denominators, it says add only the numerators or the top numbers. The denominator or the bottom number stays the same. And then it says when subtracting fractions with common denominators, guess what? Subtract only the numerator. The denominator stays the same. Now, on the examples, they line these up vertically. When it's a fraction problem, especially, I prefer to line it up horizontally because it's easier to see that my denominator is the same if they're right next to each other rather than on top of each other. And they did line up the examples on your worksheet. They lined those up for you horizontally, which is what I prefer. So we're going to go over two examples. We'll go over one subtraction, one addition, and then you guys will be good to go because I know that you guys already know how to do this. The hardest part is learning that you don't need to change your denominator. Once you know you don't change that denominator, this is pretty easy addition and subtraction. So I know you guys are you get a little bit of a brain break today. So if I have 3/7, and they did this vertically, 3/7 plus 3/7. If I saw that I was adding fractions, the very first thing that I would do is rewrite it as a horizontal equation or a number sentence. Because when I see 3/7 plus 3/7 and they are written next to each other, it's easier for me to see, hey, those bottom numbers are exactly the same. If it is written vertically, it's not like the sevens are right next to each other, so it doesn't illustrate it as clearly, just with the way that my brain works. Your brain is different than mine. Your brain might not have any problem with vertical fraction problems, but I can very easily see it's a 7 and a 7, and I'm going to do a 7. Right away, my denominator is a 7. And so I'm only going to concentrate on the numerator. 3 plus 3 is 6. So 3/7 plus 3/7 equals 6/7. Now, if it was a subtraction problem, 3/7 minus 2/7, that's another example on your page. Again, I would rewrite it horizontally because my brain just works better that way. It makes those numbers stick out very easily for me. And I think on most of your power-ups, they were also written horizontally. Maybe that's why I think that's easier, because I'm just used to it that way. Could be another answer. I see 7 and 7 on the bottom. Right away, I'm going to put 7 on the bottom. Now, really, it's just 3 minus 2. You guys are in third grade. You know 3 minus 2. That's an easy problem, is 1. So 3/7 minus 2/7 equals 1/7. On your worksheet on the Google Classroom, if you choose to do this digitally, you will see 2 boxes for each problem. So 2/3 plus 1/3, you're going to see a box on top of the line and a box below the line for the numerator and the denominator. On every single problem on this page, they have common denominators. Your denominators are not going to change. I could right away put a 3 down here. 1/4 plus 2/4, I could put a 4 down here right away. 9/11 minus 4/11, right away I can put an 11 on the bottom because your denominators are not going to change. So that should be a little bit of a freebie in each of these problems. You are only going to need to worry about the numerator. Be careful though to make sure you're double checking if it's an addition problem or if it's a subtraction problem, because you might get on a roll and be like, oh, there's an addition, and then your brain might just think that you need to do 9 plus 4. And then you didn't look at that equation, you didn't look at that operation there, and so you didn't think, oops, it's actually 9 minus 4 is 5, and maybe you did 9 plus 4 is 13. If you did that on this problem, you'd see 13 over 11 for your fraction, and you should say, whoa, something's not right. That's a top-heavy fraction. That's an improper fraction. None of your answers will be improper fractions on this worksheet. They should all be standard fractions, and your denominators are not going to change at all. What you need to do is worry about the numerator and make sure you are paying attention to what type of an operation you're doing. Addition or subtraction are the only things we're doing today.